Hello everybody. This one's going to take a little bit of a different approach. It's going to be going into the realm of interpersonal relationships, and it's going to be discussing 5 things that make love real. This has all been gathered by research I've accumulated from John Kim, also known as the Angry Therapist. There's a podcast available with this man hosting, and usually it's accompanied by his wife Vanessa. So let's go ahead and dive in onto what those things will be. So, first, it's important to examine what real actually means in these circumstances. Now, oftentimes when we all think about relationships and whenever love comes into mind, a lot of society typically leans into the superficial levels of it, which are also enjoyable, but we're going to dive into the really deep parts of it all, and it can tie into all the videos where I have discussed attachment styles, when trauma comes into play, when it comes to individual things, because in the sole basis of our blueprints, we have our psychology, correct? But our psychology is also really interlinked with our sociology, and that has to do a lot with interpersonal relationships, particularly romantic relationships, given the fact that this is a person that you're most vulnerable with. This is a person who you are seeing fully and who is fully seeing you with all the other experiences that have accrued prior to meeting each other. And that can be in any realm of their life. So, as we go into the definition of real, the truth is that real doesn't happen until you have actually started to build a relationship. Contrast is real. Triggers are real. Taking the real and building something with it does require a lot of inner work. So what does the contrast mean? The contrast doesn't just mean different tastes in food and books and music. It has to do with deeper levels. It has to do about your wiring, your love languages, your attachment styles, which I have made a previous video over if you'd like to check that out if you don't know what those are. And the definitions of love and the way we process things. Those all go hand in hand into it all. And it's really important to really consider those things, because there is a human being that you're sharing a relationship with. This human being has been through their fair share of stuff, just as you have. And while you weren't there for all of those things, you're there now. And it's important for both to do the inner work together and to heal together through those very experiences. And that's all part of building a strong foundation in your relationship. In my own relationship, we do have deep talks about those things. We do have a lot of moments where we process and we heal in order to better understand each other and show up for one another as we walk through the journey together. And I think it's very important for that to be considered in every single relationship and every single bond, because those are the very things that do allow deep healing and a deepening of the bond itself as well. So when I come into this whole conversation, I threw a couple words around. I threw around one that says your wiring, for example, love languages, attachment styles, etc. So let's go a little deeper into each of those things. So what is your wiring? We're all wired differently, and it's due to all of our stories. It's all of our autobiographies that happened before us. The way we were brought up, the way we have experienced, the way that those experiences shaped us, how they created our beliefs, our patterns, and our reactions. Our wiring does impact our relationship directly. It makes love real. Love languages. Now, love languages, there's books over it. The 5 love languages is like the commonly known one, like the actual blueprint of it all. So if you've ever heard of it or if you're curious about it, do check out the 5 love languages. Now, we all give and receive love differently. That's what love languages are. There's words of affirmation, there's physical touch, there's acts of service, there's quality time, and there's gift giving. And if you don't understand how each of you express love, it can leave the other person feeling unloved because it's not translated into their language. And we can assume, it's so easy for us to all assume that love is universal, that it's one way, shape, or form, but it has many definitions. And being able to really be conscious in considering your partner's love language, how they receive and give, really sets the tone, being able to show up for each other and really consider each other as individuals coming together, and the uniqueness that goes behind each of you and your stories and your wiring and your love languages, attachment styles. So I do discuss this in further depth in a previous video, and if you want to go ahead and check out all of those attachment styles, it's there. But to just briefly go over it, those do impact the day-to-day of every relationship. There's avoidant attachment styles, which would give a sort of generalization where an individual tends to run or hide from any sort of conflict or any sort of attachment-induced events. There's anxious attachment, which may cause the individual to fear being left and seek constant confirmation or reassurance. And there's secure attachment, which is feeling secure in your own relationship because you've had secure primary relationships before in your life. So those are all shaped based off of previous experiences as well. That goes into a lot of depth in that previous video, but this is a very real thing, and this is a very, very real thing that directly impacts a relationship. The triggers. Now this one's a really, really, really intense one because we all have our triggers in day-to-day life, and when it comes to this specific topic, no one enters into adulthood unscarred. Everybody has their own scars and police tape around certain experiences, so to speak, around things that are not healed or resolved in your own personal life and your own past. We all have those triggers. Those are things that bring up old shit and make us react a certain way. You know what I mean? Not to be blunt, but it's all of the old shit that you have dealt with. Whenever a stranger acquaintance can trigger something in us, it's easier for us to ignore it because we're not so exposed to this person, but it's more of a temporary one-time thing. However, when it comes from an individual that you spend so much time with, an individual that you're very, very vulnerable with, you can't ignore it because those triggers will keep resurfacing over and over and over again, all coming from unhealed parts of ourselves, unhealed wounds within ourselves, and before you know it, those wounds that someone else caused you are going to bleed all over your current relationship, and that isn't inherently fair to your current partner, given the fact that they're not the ones who originally wounded you. That's why it's really important to heal together in order to ensure that those two don't blur when one is not the cause of the other. Does that make sense? The fifth and final thing that can make love real is time. Time can include many different things. It can include time together. It can include time apart, the time in the day-to-day lives, the responsibilities, all of those things that can pile up in the individual's life and how those can have a bit of a ripple effect into the other's life. So time is definitely something that can be an ally. Time can be managed. Time can go by slow. Time can go by fast. And in some circumstances, whenever time does go by slow and it can take away time from one another, it's the constant return and coming back daily to your partner amidst all of the busyness that makes love real. It's the devotion of oneself to the other, the constant effort, the choice to show up for your significant other. That's what building a relationship is. Making the constant choice to constantly show up for your significant other and to accept and appreciate those contrasts, to explore those triggers, to examine where they come from and how they impact the relationship with each other and with oneself. It's taking ownership of what we need to own. It's to start the process of resolving and healing those parts of our story, our stories, together and individually. And real in this circumstance, the whole point of everything that's gathered here is that real isn't just about the feel goods. Real is all that comes from the collision of two people and their unhealed stories. What we do with this will determine and continue to strengthen the relationship bond. And it's also a way to continue and strengthen the relationship with oneself. This is meant to serve as an all-encompassing way of analyzing your interpersonal relationships and how they really do intertwine with our own personal selves. And like I said, psychology is interlinked with sociology. Sociology especially focuses in the aspects and the realms of the person that you're most vulnerable with. When you're most vulnerable, you're opening up your mind the most to this person and your heart. So I serve as inspiration, as a guide, as a toolbox to really interlink that mind-heart connection. I hope everybody with this video continues to improve and strengthen the relationships, and wishing you all a great mental health day. A special thanks to my love for walking this walk with me, and for us being able to really strengthen and heal through our relationship and everything that we have been through before each other and everything that we will be afterwards. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great mental health day.